It's time to colour with you, and today's all about some easy Prismacolor shading. Hi, it's Therese from Lostinpaper, and today I'm going to be sharing some really easy tips and tricks for shading with Prismacolor pencils. Now I've got this image, it's from the Fun Stampers Journey and Spellbinders. It's called Orange Blossoms. I've stamped it out with some Onyx Black ink onto some Nina cardstock. This is actually the 110 pound cardstock, but I could have easily just as easily done it on some 80 pound. This is just the one I grabbed. I did wait a little while, not very long, for the ink to dry. It's a pigment ink, the Onyx Black, but it's fast drying. So how I like to colour, here's my first tip, is to lay down my highlights of my image first, so you can see where I've put the yellow pencil. I've just picked out where I think the highlights on these three oranges will be. Now this is a bit of a cheaty way to colour. I've got this stamp here has lots of direction, so it already has some of the shading and it's got the little marks popped on there, so I know that's where the shadows are going to be. But just to remind me, what I've done is actually picked my highlight areas first and then made the darkest areas furthest away from those. I like to add basically all of my base colour first before I come in with my Gamsol. So I'm not pressing very hard on my pencil at all. I don't want to fill the tooth of the paper because then I won't be able to add any more colour. It'll just kind of build up like a wax on top of each other and not give me the look that I want, and I would have less options then for adding more shading later on, because that's what I like to do. I kind of get a base colour over my whole image and then I'll come in and actually add more shading after, when I get most of the image coloured. I find that's a better way for me to look at the image and see where the shadows are going to fall. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a card. People aren't going to critique where the shadows are, and it's all about having fun. So rather than add a lot of pressure to yourself, I think it's good just to get your pencils out and play and have fun. There's no point having all these amazing supplies and not using them. And some of these stamps just love to be coloured, I'm sure of it. Especially when they're bright colours like this. I love colouring with bright colours. So I'm going to list all the colours today that I've used at my blog, and the link will be in the description below. The greens, I'm doing exactly the same. I'm adding my highlight first, adding the darkest portion where I think the shadows are going to be, and then adding a middle green. Then I'm going to come in with my Gamsol and blend them all out together. I can always come back in later and add more shading, which is exactly what I'm going to do. This stamp set has a few different images and some really nice sentiments as well. It's a red rubber cling stamp, so you know that they're going to stamp beautifully every time. I do like photopolymer stamps and the way they stamp, but some inks work much better with the red rubber stamp. So if you're having some trouble with your inks taking, that could be, maybe you need to try a different ink or a different cardstock. Alright, so you can sort of see where the image is sitting now. I thought that the oranges needed a little bit more of a highlight, and that's the great thing about Prismacolor pencils, is they're very forgiving. I think they're one of the easiest mediums to use. Pencils in general are one of the easiest mediums to use, and I could come in with my eraser and actually make those highlights whiter. And Copics, you couldn't do that. You'd have to use the colourless blender, and sometimes that gets a bit messy. Alright, so now's time for some real-time shading. This is a indigo blue, which I'm putting on the leaves. I know it's blue, it's very dark. You can't even tell that it's really blue because it's blending with the green. And what I'm doing here is picking out where I want the real shadows of the leaves to be. and just lightly colouring with the pencil, and try not to overcommit too much, because I can always go back and add some more. So I kind of work my way around the image, and I think this is what takes your shading to the next level, is to come in with a really dark colour. I know it's a bold move and a bit scary for sure, but it's the thing that really brings an image to life. Then I came in with black. I know, really, it's proper black too, but I put a lot less of this, and really only in the nooks and crannies of the leaves. And I even had to look up what colour Orange Blossom was. I know, it's a bit sad, isn't it? Alright, so on the oranges I decided to actually do the shading with a brown. I think it's a little bit more realistic, and I've added the shading beneath where the leaves are hovering over the images, and also to try and make them look a bit spherical, I've followed the artist's markings on the actual orange itself, and I am pressing very lightly, stepping back, having a look, coming back in and adding more shading as I wanted. So I did actually initially stamp this in my Misty, and I had to remove that foam mat. Do you ever forget? I always forget to take the foam mat out when I'm stamping with cling stamp. I know, but it's good to have that option. Anyway, I'm using my Onyx Black to re-stamp the image, just to add the crispness. It almost sounded like Christmas, didn't it? Crispness to the outlines, and then I can just die cut it with the coordinating die. And how cool is the colour of this die? It's lime green. Oh, it's almost chartreuse. I reckon it's more chartreuse. But very pretty. I'm using one of the sentiments from the set, and this is probably one of my favourite styles of font when the letters are coloured in. I think it looks really modern, and to put this with such a realistic drawing I thought was a fun idea. I don't know, let me know if you disagree. But I've just stamped that. So I've actually got a landscape card, and I've cut the bottom off the landscape card, and this is the piece that I've cut off the bottom of the landscape card. And then I can just turn it over and cut the back off, because I want to layer this on the black cardstock and then on the front of my landscape card, because I'm going to be adding my image off the top of the card, and I still want it to be able to fit into a normal sized envelope, and that's a good trick. So I did add some foam dots to that, and then I can just pop that up on the front of the card. So don't forget to like this video if you like it, and also hit subscribe if you don't want to miss any more of my videos, and there's more coming up real soon. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Oh, and there's a couple more videos here linked for you to check out too. So till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.